Hey everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. I'm Wendy, and today we're doing some Dollar Tree DIYs for your fall home decor. And this time my sister went to Dollar Tree to go pick up some items for me. I told her just get whatever you want and I'll see what I can do with it. So I'm going to be using a few of these today, and then we'll do some more later on, but I'll show you some of the things she got me. And what she doesn't know is that we recently kind of did a little bit of a makeover in her living room. So I'm going to be making everything for her and just surprise her with it when we're done. And now, without further ado, let's get started.
That's nice. That's it.
Perfect. Okay.
So,
Well,
cut.
Okay, say bye-bye. My sissy does not like to be on camera. So we're going to start out with this pumpkin plaque from the Dollar Tree, as well as the pretty little arrangements she got in this box. And I think this is really cute as is, but we're going to zhuzh it up a little bit. And then I'm going to use these half beads. I'll have these linked in the description box below. You've seen me use these before. I really like them. So first I'm going to take off the jute twine, or the tag, and the goodies at the top of this pumpkin. And there was a bunch of glue on there, and so I wanted to get that off. I'll use my Cricut spatula to get that done. And I don't need to cover the hole at the top because that's going to get covered up when we're done. Anyway, I'm going to take my half beads and just go down the two side pieces of my pumpkin, and I'm not going to go all the way down because we're going to stick this inside of our box, and so I don't want to waste my beads if I don't have to. And so I'm going to do the two sides, and then in the middle, the oval part, I'm going to start at the top, and then I'll do the two sides going on the right and the left. And again, we'll just go down about 3/4 of the way. And I'm just using hot glue to get these on there. And I really liked how pretty this was with the light beige colors, but obviously it looks undone, so we're gonna paint that and give it some more fall cuteness. Now, when we redid her living room, it started out pretty dark in the dark woods, and it's a little bit outdated, but it's still super pretty. But she really wanted some of the lighter colors and the browns and beiges and lighter tones of woods. So that's what we're going to do all of these projects in to make them go with the new decor that we have in there. So I started by taking out the leaves, and I was going to leave all the flowers in there and then just work around it, but they were too close to the center, and that's where I wanted my pumpkin to be. So I'm going to pull everything out and just start from scratch. And I want this to be double-sided. So I'll have something on one side and then something else on the other. So I'm going to paint my pumpkin using some antique wax from Waverly, some mineral chalk paint, and some white. And I'm just going to kind of mix those all together and then paint it on top of my pumpkin. And this takes a little bit of time because you have to get in between all those nooks and crannies of the beads. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I also wanted that wood tone, or the grain of the wood, to kind of peek through. So I'm going to take a baby wipe and wipe that all down. And I really liked the shading and kind of how the different colors blend together and just make it look really pretty. And then to make it a little more worn and rustic and give it that farmhouse look, I'm going to take a chippy brush and dip it in my white chalk paint, and then take most of it off and just dry brush over everything. And this is really going to make the details and the sides and the corners and the beads all kind of just pop while lightening it all up. And then for the back side, I took my antique wax just by itself and brushed it all over the back. And then I'm going to take a baby wipe and wipe it all down. And the good thing about the baby wipes is that it's a little bit wet, so it kind of just mushes everything together and gives it a really smooth finish. And then I'm going to take some of my mineral mixture and do the same thing, you know, where the lines are on the front of the pumpkin. So I'm just doing the two curved lines and then the little oval or eyeball in the middle, and brushing that out with the wet wipe as well. And then I'm going to do the same dry brush effect on my box just to make it coordinate with my pumpkin. So now to attach my pumpkin, I'm going to take a couple of craft sticks and I just broke them in half and stuck 2 of them into the styrofoam in the middle. And then I'll use some hot glue to attach the pumpkin on both sides. So once I get it on to the first 2 sticks, then I'll take the other 2 halves and glue those to the front so it stays snug as a bug in a rug. And now that my pumpkin's in place, I'm going to start attaching some of the greenery into the front of my pumpkin, and that's going to cover those popsicle sticks. And I'm using some Dollar Tree mums and some just different pretty colors. I'm using the light neutral tones for the side with the beads because the beads are pretty busy, so I wanted to keep that pretty neutral. And then on the other side, I'll use the ones that originally came in the arrangement for a more colorful side with the fall dark colors and the oranges and so forth, so she can have it either way she wants. And if she wants to put it in the middle of the table, both sides will show and be super pretty. And then since the original piece came with that pumpkin on one side, I'm going to add these to the other using the little clips that are attached to it. And then to cover up that stem, I'm just going to use some jute twine and wrap all the way around so that it covers up the little hole and gives it a little more textury cuteness at the top of my pumpkin. And then for the little pieces that are left over, I'm just going to tie those into a sweet little bow, and that'll be on one side, and on the other I'll add a different bow, but I'll show you that in a second. So now I'm going to take my white paint pen and just handwrite "give thanks," and I got a little squirrely with my writing, so I'm going to have to go back and do the faux calligraphy to kind of hide those squiggly lines. I was just going to leave it, you know, the thinner lines, but because I did go off the rails. I don't know. I think I hit a little bumpity bump or something. So I couldn't help it and had to go back and kind of correct that by doing the faux calligraphy and making those lines thicker and straighter. So I think it looks good though once I did do this. You could do this with your cutting machine as well if you don't like your handwriting, but I think this is so pretty once it's all done. And then for the other side with the beads, I'm going to take a little bit of 5/8 inch ribbon from the Dollar Tree and just make a sweet little bow and then hot glue that to the top of my pumpkin. And then for this side, I'm just going to take my skinny white paint pen that comes in the set with the other fat ones that I used on the other side. Just down at the very bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to write "thankful." And it started to run out of paint because I need to push it down, you know, to get it activated and all juicy. So I did that, and I don't know if I just drank too much coffee that day or what, or I was hurrying too much, but my writing was not on point today. Anyway, here it is all finished on both sides, and I love how this turned out. I think she's really gonna love this. I would love it in my house. All of these projects are gonna work in my decor as well, but I love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. So for this project, I'm going to be using the lanterns that she picked up. Now, the price tag on both of these say $5. So usually it would be $3 for the smaller one, but I'm not sure. That's what the price tag says. So it is what it is. I guess that's what they charged. But I am also going to keep the styrofoam pieces at the top that are used to protect the little hurricanes inside. So for this project, just make sure you keep those and don't throw them out. So I'm going to remove the tags, and I was thinking that I was going to leave the frames black because she really liked the lanterns, but I decided to have Michael J paint them white. Now, another thing that you could do is use these Dollar Tree lace doilies, but I'm going to go ahead and use some scrap burlap because I have 70 million yards of this because a friend gifted this for me. She used it as table runners for her wedding some years ago. I'll never run out of burlap, I'm telling you. So I'm just going to make a circle and cut that out, and then using those styrofoam pieces, I'm going to take some scrap dowels and stick that into the styrofoam right in the middle, and it's going to be there temporarily just so I can see how tall I need to make it, and then I'll cut that down with my cutters, and then I'm going to put my burlap over that, and then using some jute twine, I'm just going to start wrapping around the top. That's going to become the stem of our little pumpkin lanterns. Now this way, and the reason we're doing it this way on this styrofoam is so that my sister can, after the fall season, take these out and still use the lanterns in her normal non-seasonal decor, and it's going to be so pretty. They're just really pretty lanterns, and I love the look of them. So now I don't know if you guys did this, but I remember my dad every year helping us to cut out our pumpkins when we did our jack-o'-lanterns, and he would do the little squiggly lines at the top to open the pumpkins, and so some of them would be big and some of them would be small, and then that way they would match up when you put the lid back onto your pumpkin after it was hollowed out. So I'm just basically doing the same thing, and while I was cutting these, I just could not stop thinking of the memories of doing the jack-o'-lanterns, and then my mom would take the pumpkin seeds and put them on a tray and cook them, and oh my gosh, that was just such a great childhood memory. So this burlap is a little thicker, and so it was kind of sticking straight out. So I took my iron and I'm going to try and poke those sides down, or make them lay down a little bit more. You probably wouldn't have to do this, but this burlap was pretty stiff. So once I get it all cut out and shaped the way I want it, I'm going to take my hot glue and get this all permanently in place and attached to my little foam pieces. And any places where it was sticking out, I wanted to just hot glue that down. But I don't want to mess those sides up or let anything get in the way, so that it still attaches securely to the top of our lanterns. And then I also added a little additional hot glue to the bottom part, or the top part of the styrofoam, so that the burlap would stay snug as a bug in a rug. So now I'm going to take some jute twine, and to make the lines of our pumpkins, I'm just going to take it and wrap it around the hurricane portion, about two, I think I did 2 wraps around there, and then just tied it in a knot at the top. On the smaller one, I did 4 lines, and on the larger one, I did 3. So whatever you think looks best. I think the 3 does look better. But now if you're using the lace as the top, and I kept going back and forth trying to decide which way I was going to go, either the burlap or the doilies. And if I did use the doilies, I was going to use some of that Dollar Tree lace trim for these lines. So just know that you can do it either way. And of course, you can also leave the lantern holders black, but I just thought this would look prettier with the decor that we just changed up in my sister's living room. So now to embellish our pumpkins, I'm going to use this white stem from the Dollar Tree, as well as these pip berries, also from Dollar Tree. And these are really pretty green and white ones. And I'm going to wrap that around the top of the stem, at the bottom of the stem. And then I used a pencil to kind of make those little tendrils that'll stick up and be curly-cued and so, so cute. And once I get them all wrapped around my pencil, I'm just going to pull the pencil out and then make those little tendrils spread out just by pulling it apart or pulling it up and then placing them where I want them. Now this stem has been in storage, so the leaves are a little bit rough. So I'm going to use my heat tool to get those flattened out. And I don't know, this is just like magic or something. I think it's so fun watching. I did the whole stem, even though I didn't need them all, just because it was fun to watch. Anyway, I'm going to take 2 of those white leaves and hot glue those at the bottom. And I just kind of spread them out going one way and one the other. And you guys know anytime I wrap anything with jute twine, I'm going to let some of that excess hang down in case I want to do anything, which I did end up putting some beads on there. I'll show you that in a second. And then I love the leaves on these little, I forget what kind of flowers these are, but they're from Dollar Tree, but I think they're colored so pretty and they have some shading and they don't look so plasticky and fake. So I'm going to do that to the tops of both of my pumpkins and get those all nice and pretty. So then I just put my hurricanes inside of my lanterns and then added some pillar candles. You'll need a short one for the short lantern, obviously, and then a taller one for the taller candle, and then just add your tops to both of those. So I'm going to add a smaller bead and then a larger bead and then another smaller wooden bead. And then I'll wait to tie the knots at the bottom until I see where I want them placed so I can slide them up and down. And then once they're in the correct position or the position that I like, I'm going to make that knot and then they are done. And here they are all finished, and I think these are so pretty and soft and super fall looking, but farmhousey at the same time. And you can turn them back into non-seasonal decor when you're done with this season, and then just store the top parts away, cut off that jute twine if you want, because it's still kind of cute with the twine on there too. But anyway, I love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. So now it's time to do something with this Big Daddy porch sign, and it really is pretty cute, but it's very flat and one-dimensional, really colorful, which is really pretty too and very fall-like, but I'm going to make this a little more neutral. So I'm going to use some Walmart drop cloth. I use some more of that burlap, and then I have this Dollar Tree shirt that is a really pretty brown, and then I have my uncle's old sweater that he stained. I've used this in a couple of projects in years past, so I'm going to use this as well. And you can see that all these pretty shades of off-white and brown go together really pretty. And then I'm going to take some Dollar Tree batting to do this project. So on the front side, it's got some sparkly glitter and the letters, you know, are raised. So I was thinking of pulling that off or, you know, scraping it off, but I thought it would just be easier to do everything on the back. Either way, now that it's done, I didn't even need to do this. I probably should have done it on the front so that it covers up all the ugliness that you'll see once we turn that onto the back. But anyway, I'm going to start out by figuring out exactly where the bottom parts of my pumpkin are. I drew these lines just to give me a guide so I would know where to put my fabric. You really don't need to do this either, but I just felt more comfortable doing it. So I'm going to take my white chalk paint and paint the bottom part, the vase of this piece. I'm going to do the painting first because then we'll add our fabric. So I'm just using my white chalk paint and painting that on there. And this is going to be one-dimensional and flat, but I'm going to try and use my paint to make it feel like it's a little bit bumpity bumped up, you know. So I'm going to let some of that pretty brown show through on the vase, but I'm also going to be putting words on here. So I do want it to be pretty solid, and the shadowing that I'm going to do with my paint is going to be very subtle so that you can read the words once this is all done. So I'm going to take my celery chalk paint. I added a little bit of white and a little bit of mineral so that it would be a little bit darker and not so pastel-y. And I'm going to just kind of go along the edges of my vase and then give it a little bumpity bump at the bottom so it looks like it's kind of sticking out and rounded. And I think the green kind of just gives it a natural muted tone and looks really pretty on this piece. So now I'm going to start with my brown, which is the darkest of the four different fabrics, and I'm going to cut a little piece out that's going to cover that first pumpkin at the bottom. And this is why I didn't need to do the bumpity bumps on here, because we're going to cover that middle portion where it goes from the base to the first pumpkin with some flowers. So I'm going to turn my fabric upside down, and then using my staple gun, I'm going to go along the bottom edge. Here I kind of curved it because I wanted to see how well I could actually shape the bottom of my pumpkin with my stapler. So once I get it into the placement that I want, I'm going to fold it back down and then add some hot glue on that first pumpkin and then put my batting on top of that. That's just going to hold it in place while I'm working. And then I took my fabric and kind of gathered it up towards the top so that it would give the lines, you know, the pleating, and that makes it look like, in my opinion, you know, like the lines of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to staple that to the bottom of the next pumpkin. But I'm going to go a little bit higher than where the bottom pumpkin would be, because when we start the next color, I'm going to go below where my staples are on this one. Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying here? And then I'm going to flip this over and then staple it on the back. And this is where I was saying it's going to get kind of ugly on the back. So if you did want to clean that up, you could cover this with either some felt or some more burlap, just so that the back side doesn't look so ugly. So now on my next pumpkin up, I'm going to use that burlap and I'll staple behind or below the first set of staples that I did at the top of our bottom pumpkin. And here's where I was trying to kind of shape it so you could see those bottom bumpity bumps at the bottom of that pumpkin that I drew on at the beginning. Of course, I can't see them, but I get the idea of where it should go because I'm just going with the side guides of where that second pumpkin is, or where each of the pumpkins are. This is hard to explain, but you can see what I'm doing here, and it's going to cover up those bottom, or I guess those would be the top staples that will be covered by the bottom of that next pumpkin. You could just watch. So now that I've got all of my fabric attached, I'm going to take some jute twine and wrap the top where the stem would be. And I'm just leaving that fabric at the top in there so my stem will be nice and plump And I'm going to wrap that all the way around. And I did leave some of it, you know, hanging over. I was going to maybe use those as tendrils. I end up cutting those off, but that just gives me the option of hanging something there if I want to. But once I get it all tied and secured in place, I'm going to take some nautical rope and just cut little pieces and then kind of fray it at the bottom and then start gluing those side by side until I get all the way around. I didn't do the back so that it would stay flat, but I'm going to do all the, you know, front and the sides so that you don't see any of the back part of the board. So now I'm going to give this a little haircut, and here's where I cut off the rest of my tendrils, deciding that it didn't really need it. So once I get that all nice and even, kind of even, you know, just a little bit more in control, I'm going to spread those out a little bit and get those all ruffled up. But I think this looks like a really cute stem here. So now I'm going to take some of Dollar Tree's floral foam, and these come in little slices, so they're already sliced up for you. I'm going to just put 3 of those down at the bottom in between my pumpkins and my vase where the flowers were on the board, but we're going to make real flowers and have them pop up so we give it more of a 3D look. So now I'm going to hot glue those down, but then just to keep it even more secure, I'm going to take some jute twine and tie those in place so that it stays snug as a bug in a rug. And then I just took a bunch of pretty neutral colored flowers from the Dollar Tree and started poking them into that foam here and there, just making sure that I cover all sides and, you know, so that none of that foam peeks through. So I have been wanting to use this Ameranthes ever since I've seen them in the Dollar Tree stores, and they never turn out right. They always remind me of spider legs. So I'm going to be courageous and use it in this again. If it doesn't look good, I'm going to pop them right back out. But it ends up looking good, and I think for the first time, I actually loved it when it was in this piece. So now I'm going to take 3 different kinds of Dollar Tree ribbon to make our sweet little bow at the top. I just used some faux leather, some pumpkin ribbon, and then some jute ribbon, and I'm just going to fold those over and give it a couple of loops, I think 3 on each one, and then just put those all together. I did make little snips at the very middle of each of those, and that's a little bit time consuming, but it's so worth it because when you put your chenille stem through it, you can move the loops more easily, and it makes it just stand up and it makes for a super pretty perky bow. And then I'll attach that to the top of my pumpkin. So now I'm going to put my words on my vase, and I'm using some Dollar Tree contact paper, the shelf liner that you can find there in the wood tone. Now I also had a piece of dark brown adhesive vinyl that I had from years and years ago, and I didn't know if it was going to work, so I did it with both just so I had a backup in case it didn't look good or work right with the Dollar Tree stuff. So it turned out this was the easiest vinyl to use. I mean, I couldn't even believe that this worked so well. But anyway, I'm going to use the scripture, "In all things give thanks," which I think is the mantra of the entire Thanksgiving season and the fall season. So I just used the font. I forget what the font was, but I'll put it in the description box below, and I'll probably put my little text overlay here for you so that you can see what it is. I don't know what it is right now. Anyway, I'm going to kind of spread those apart so that you have the two, pieces, "in all things," and then a little pause, "give thanks." And I always have to remind myself too that it does say "in every circumstance," not just in the good ones. So I have to tell myself this as well. And it's not just in the good times that we need to give thanks. We need to give thanks in all situations. So, and that's 1 Thessalonians 5:18. And here it is, all finished, and I think this is so pretty. It's so large, it was hard to stage it and get it filmed all the way up and down. Oh, and you see I added a couple of little squirrely tendrils there at the bottom. And I actually just used the leftover stems that I was pulling my leaves off of. Anyway, I love how this turned out. I hope my sister will love how this turned out, because this is going to be the first time that she sees it when she sees this video. So I hope you love it, Misty. Anyway, I'll be using the rest of the items that she picked up at the Dollar Tree. So for now, I hope you guys enjoyed these projects. And if you did, don't forget to give them a thumbs up. Comment, let me know what you think. If you're not already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down at the bottom, as well as the little bell right next to it, so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye!